Frank Giavella with The Contending. One of the very few nice surprises this year in the Oscar race was the inclusion of A Lien in the live action short category. This stirring, anxiety ridden work, written and directed by Sam and David Cutler-Kreutz, tells the harrowing story of one couple and what happens at a green card meeting. The film stars Victoria Ratermanis, who I am pleased to have here today. Hi, Victoria. So, full disclosure, we know each other, so I just want to get that out of the way. How does it feel to be in an Oscar-nominated film?
I mean, it's the most surreal, absurd event of my life. It just like I mean, it's an absolute impossibility. Like a short film category is like the hardest thing, and then I don't know, like outside of like my friends and my family, like we're kind of nobodies. We didn't have celebrities or money behind this project, so it's just very, very exciting, very surreal. It feels like all of a sudden everyone knows that I have an imaginary friend or something. Like it's not a tangible thing. So it's a very mind-blowing experience. But it's great. I mean, it's a huge honor. It's deeply validating in a way. Yeah.
And you're in a category with some real heavy hitters. I mean, Zoe Saldana, right?
Insane. Insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me about how the project came to you.
The project I submitted for through Actors Access during the pandemic when I was still living in New York. And I'm sure most people do this, but I always look up everyone that's involved with the project, anything that they've worked on before I submit, just to see how they make work and what their work is like and their storytelling. And I remember going to Sam's website and being like blown away by their, not only just because he's a cinematographer as well, so his eye is really beautiful, but all of those stories and kind of focus that they were doing in their more narrative sections were really interesting. Like it was a very like intimate, intentional focus. And then also the role like really stood out to me, like for Sophie. um One of the things that really pushed me to take this role was that they said that she's the kind of person who's, to the most part, tried to do everything right in her life and really believes in the system, and that ends up being her downfall.
Mm.
And that was like really huge for me because I feel like that's where a lot of us are feeling it right now, is that we vote, we try to show up, we try to volunteer, we try to like be honest and have conversations, and when the system fails us, it's just devastating. You feel like you have no power or control. I also grew up overseas. My dad worked for State Department, so I had had some experience with visas and like working in a visa office. And some of my closest friends, I've like been through the visa and green card process with them. And then on top of it, they're like, she's a gringa that speaks Spanish. And I was like, I speak Spanish. Like, I was like, this is my role, baby. So I submitted to them. And then I reached out through their website and I said, hi, I just submitted to on Actors Access. Like, I've watched all of your work on here. Like, I really believe in this project. I believe in this role. I would really love the opportunity to audition. And I just fought for it really hard. Sometimes you see those things that you're like, I need this. Like, this is me. I need this role.
I love that. I really love that. So tell me about your prep and your process for this particular film because it's a pretty harrowing
It's
movie.
very, yeah, and it's one of those great acting and storytelling traps where everything's happening to you, so there is an element of being able to like stay in the moment but also refresh to the news that you were receiving each time. That can kind of, like that's like the endurance of like doing a project like this. So a big thing for me was like really building. I mean, I always start this way. I really start with like a backstory for my character, and then like Will and I would meet up and rehearse. And Sam and David are so intentional. Like this was something that also, like, this is one of my most proud pieces that I've worked on, because the experience was also like sometimes you don't really get met halfway, with the effort that you put in. And so when that happens and you're working with people who deeply care about not just only like the filmmaking and the storytelling, but really about the actor's experience, it's so enriching. Like they gave us so much rehearsal, so much prep time. They allowed us to kind of flow in a moment. They really believed in like allowing a scene to unfold, and giving us the space to not think so much technically. It was so funny. I was hanging out with Andrea the other night, who's our DP, and he was like, I remember being in the car with you and my camera was right here in your face. And it's that last shot. And they asked you to just let it all out and cry. And it was like, he was like, I swear it was like 30 minutes of me watching you devastated. And I kept thinking, like, should we cut? Like, is it? And I was like, I don't remember that because I honestly never felt like the camera was there. Like, they made such a great environment for us to work in that I really was just going moment to moment with my family. Like, I didn't feel like I was like, okay, we got to stop and get I wasn't like they really made it like a theatrical experience, which only gave more to the film. We really felt like we were going through each moment, which was lovely.
And
Yeah.
those extreme close-ups are
Yeah.
such an essential part of the film.
Yeah. Yeah. You feel the entire, like, I haven't watched it in a while, and we watched it the other night with Andrea, and I cried because I was like, not only does this story absolutely break my heart, and I hadn't watched it with people, so having people there and listening to their responses was wild. But then I just remember what it felt like, and it's just devastating. It's a devastating feeling in film. You feel your heart sink into your gut. And then we got to work with Cora, who's like the cutest kid in the world. And Will and I just immediately, like, and from day one, we're like, we're eating all of our meals together. You're going to hang out with us. We'll play games. And then we didn't really have to direct her because we were interacting like friends in a family. So, like, when I'm like, hey, you want to press the button in the elevator? Like, that's just what we would do all day. So she just naturally would be like, yeah, I'll do it. And would just press it. We just immediately made this little unit on set where if I had to go film something, I'd be like, well, you stay with Cora, like, well, like parents, like fake parents, like with her. So that made it a lot easier too. Cause sometimes working with kids, like, they're just kids. Like, there's some like omnipresent kids who seem to know what they're doing, but most of the time they're just kids. They know the camera's there. And so anytime that you can distract them or make them feel comfortable enough that they get lost in it with you too, that was like a big goal for us.
Well, and you and William, I mean, you have this incredible chemistry,
Yeah.
and you were able to establish that bond. I mean, in a 14-minute film,
Yeah.
yeah, it needs to be established almost immediately, and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like it's almost like cheating the system when you have a good partner because you almost don't have to do anything. Like, you get everything from him. Like, I get everything from Will. Like, when he looks at me or responds to me, I'm like, oh, like, he just was a really amazing acting partner to work with. He's a pro too. Like, you'll see, like, if you look at his like red like roster, like, he's out there. Like, he's hitting it. He's the guy.
Yeah, yeah, big time. Well, you're the girl.
Oh,
Hey.
thanks.
So let's talk a little bit about the politics in the film because it exposes our often inhumane immigration process, and now it's probably going to get even worse.
Oh
There's that
yeah.
shot of Trump in the film that is just chilling.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really it was something that, like, I knew about. I mean, obviously we all know about ICE practices, and like, if you've ever worked a restaurant job, there's been moments where, like, you've been worried about your staff getting pulled out. Like, there's definitely certain elements where we're all like living in this, sitting on the same train, going the same place kind of feeling with it. But Sam and David brought it to our attention about the entrapment at the green card meetings. I didn't think that that was allowed. It's such a I mean, it's entrapment. It's a bait and switch. You know that this person's going to be there to get approved, and then you get them before their paperwork signed, and then technically, because a lot of people, unfortunately, when they're doing their green card process, they end up overstaying their visas sometimes, so they are like illegally here.
Yeah.
And one of the bigger issues, I mean, this is a very big issue, but one of the bigger things that popped up for them was Americans getting arrested in the process, because it's such an emotional, tense time. And even the officers in that moment are being like, I've been told to come in and grab these people here. I'm going to grab these people here. That's my job. And like, there's not a lot of like time, and there's a lot of emotion. Like there was Americans that were arrested and spent like a year in jail because of paperwork and court dates, just because they were there as their brother's sponsor,
Wow.
or kids, American kids that were taken because their parents were illegal, but they are United States, citizens. And it's, I think that's like the big thing at the end of the film is I'm like, look at her passport, like I have a legal document, like please, you're about to completely separate someone who has nothing to do with this at all.
Oh, and
uh,
your character had the luck of finding the officer that would actually do that.
Yes. I mean, thank God. Thank
Yeah,
God it was like, one guy that I was talking to and they didn't immediately handcuff me because of how I was responding.
yeah,
That's also like, speaking of politics, that's the white privilege of being a person who thinks that she can speak that way to an officer. That
yeah,
I think that I have the ability to do that because, even if I'm thinking about that or not, like in my mind, I'm like, I'm getting my daughter back, whether you kill me here or I kill you. Like that's the stakes that I'm working within. Um, yeah, it's just a very, I mean, I think even now, like, it's so fortunate for our film because I'm really glad that this story is getting seen. And also I think it's been really like validating to other filmmaker friends of mine. They're like, oh wow, if you guys can do it, then we can do it too. Just in terms of like artistry and like moving forward in like a very crazy industry right now. But it's also so unfortunate to me that in the time that we've made this movie, edited it, released it, done festival runs, we're back where we were.
yeah.
And if anything, it's 10 times worse. Like they're going into schools. It's just so I'm like I'm so happy and also so upset at the same time. So it's a very I feel very proud to be a part of the conversation. I mean, I think everyone this award season is, I mean, I watched like the Grammys the other night and we're talking about like trans rights right now, like the T
Yeah.
has been taken off of LGBT on like government websites. I have friends who are trans waiting for their passports to come in and they don't know if they're going to get them, or if they're going to say the right gender.
Yeah.
And just it's a very crazy time and I'm happy that stories like this can stand out so that people who wouldn't know about something like this know. Like I have had lots of people come up to me after watching me like I had no idea this was going on. I always just assume everyone who was getting kicked out was doing something bad and was
Mm.
doing like a bad person and that's why,
Well,
so
we're a country of immigrants, and it's astonishing to me how there are just so many people in our country. My grandmother was one of them who
yeah,
literally came over off the boat and
yeah,
yet was all about, no, you have to be American, and those people are coming and taking our jobs. And I'm like, I was a kid, but I'm thinking you are one of those people.
yes. It's a really uh surreal thing. Like I think in my mind that if I move forward and I get to open a door, in my mind, I'm opening that door to everyone else who has gotten me to this door and is walking through with me. But there is some kind of wild fear that there's not enough room for us here, that people close that door. I mean,
Yeah,
I come from immigrants. My grandparents came through Ellis Island, like
yeah,
my grandfather was Yanis Ratermanis and he was Johnny, like there's like we the only people who didn't come here on boats, we've already ravaged their lives, you know what I mean? Like the rest of us all arrived mostly in the same way. And I think there's it's wild to me because the power of America is the opportunity of it being a melting pot. That this
yes,
is where you come to make something of yourself. And that was what we intended for this nation. But now there's this, I don't know, time, money, and fear do weird things to people, like that you get scared that the little bit that you have will be taken. And instead of thinking like, oh, that person's there, I'm here, there's room for us, there's this like protection that pops up. And I mean, I was talking about this recently about like the tenement museums in New York, like they have these old drawings there that was like when the Irish started coming through and they drew them as gorillas and everyone was
yeah,
like, Irish are going to ruin our country. And now I think about all the people that are like, oh yeah, I'm Irish, or like, and they're like, yeah, but it's the Mexicans that are coming in. And I'm like, there's
yeah.
no, I know that like third grade history was boring, but like, did anyone get anything from that? Like, did we not change anything at all? Like, this is wild, wild to me.
Yeah, I mean it's completely crazy. I want to pivot to asking you if you're going to the Oscars.
I think we are. I know for sure Sam and David will. They're promised tickets. And then I think it's like, you kind of gotta see how many tickets you can get, but like fingers crossed we're going. I think we're gonna be able to, but it hasn't I'm like, I'll believe it when I like have it like written on paper that's like you shall attend the Oscars. That's when I'll believe it. But yeah, I really hope so. It would
Well, my
be
fingers are crossed for you. You have to
thank
go.
you. Thank you. I know. I'm like, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity, you know?
Let's talk a little bit about your background because you got your start in theater. Can you speak a little bit about you? Now you live in LA. Can you
Mhm.
speak a little bit about the move? And I mean, it had to have been some kind of cultural whiplash. Uh, tell us a little bit about your journey.
Um, well, I grew up overseas and then I moved to New York when I was 18 and went to Pace. And I didn't know anything about school here, anything like that. It was one of those things where I had like a college counselor that was like, you can go study acting in school. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, like you do acting here. Like you could go do that as like your major. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. And like my parents, I don't come from money at all. My parents were like, go wherever you can get a scholarship and funding and we'll send you there. And I got into Pace and I feel like my years at Pace were really just learning how to be back in America because I grew up mainly overseas. And I had no idea about like conservatories or like even being able to switch schools or like anything. I was just like learning how to be here. And like since then, I've just everything that I've done and booked and like the schooling and I did like Meisner for 2 years through Playhouse West. That was like a school in Brooklyn where I met Carlotta, our mutual friend. And yeah, I've just been in between theater and then film for a while now. And I love New York. Like truly, like my life goal is to like die in Brooklyn. Like that that would be my thing. And I'm very genuinely planning on like building towards a very bi-coastal life. I think New York is one of the most magical places because you're just all together in the midst of things. I really I think growing up and being a new kid all the time, I just always enjoyed that at least I was like a part of a city
Hmm.
and like being on the train with everyone and seeing I'm such a nosy person. Like I love watching people. I love run-ins. I love the spontaneity of New York. But during the pandemic, I felt like a lot more work was kind of happening in LA and it was just one of those things I was like I don't ever want to live without regrets. I besides my beautiful cat, I'm not tied to much, like my books and my cat, those are the things that go with me. And then I have amazing friends in New York and now I have amazing friends in LA. But I came here very like on a whim. Like I truly jumped. I was living with an ex at the time. He broke up with me and I was like, I'm gonna just go and see what happens. And in the 3 years that I've been here, I've done crazy things, like things that I would like really epic theater, which I didn't think would happen in LA, like really beautiful, original, like enriching, challenging plays and roles. I've made a lot of shorts with friends. I've this summer I produced my first piece of writing, where it's starring myself and Jim Cummings, which was really exciting to like kind of take control over things because I think sometimes as actors we kind of are sitting around and waiting. And after the strikes, I was like, I can't do this. I'm too impatient. I have to move something forward. And also this last year, like a big goal of mine was to get into the actors studio, which I did this year. So that was like a
Uh,
big push. So I'm like, a hungry, greedy actor. I'm like, I want to do really epic theater. And then also I want to be on TV and film. I want to do it all. So I'm like constantly in like a balance of that with my life right now. Yeah.
well, there's no reason why you shouldn't.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah,
It's
I
it's
mean,
good. Yeah.
you've done so many shorts as actor, writer, and director. I want to ask you about the journey for these films. And sometimes the end goal is a little tricky because it's festivals, streamer.
Mhm.
What is your feeling? Because you've done quite a number of
Yeah.
shorts.
I think a few of them were really made to make something and to have that practice of constantly creating and risking and testing out story and working with people and not sitting around and waiting to be creative. I think some of the more recent ones, and I mean, even Alien, I think was like, it was a huge passion project for David and Sam, but it was very purposeful and intentional. And I knew that they wanted to do a festival run, but to see how far it's come is really like a miracle. Like it's almost impossible for a film like that to get this kind of notoriety. And I don't think we ever intend to be like, okay, I'm gonna make a short film so that I can go to the Oscars. Like that's never like the intention. It's really like I feel like this thing in this story is sitting in me, and if I don't express it, I'm gonna throw up. Like I have to
Yeah.
get that in my system. And that was kind of how I felt with like my piece that I produced, where I was just like you said, it's a culture shock. It was a big culture shock moving to LA. It was very isolating here. It can be very isolating here. Uh, I'm a person who loves to walk, so sometimes sitting around in a car, like there's certain areas where like even if you just want to get a coffee, you got to drive there, and I'm like, ugh, can't do that. That is not my pace at all. I like to move and groove and talk to people. Um, so my short was really like out of a frustration of feeling like I didn't have control over my ability to create and I didn't want to wait around. And then also it was really just like a conversation of like, what is real connection between people? And like, I really sometimes wonder how we get so lost with each other, like what is real intimacy between people? What is like, the risk of like making a fool of yourself just to know that we're all just trying to get by, like that's really like something that coming out of 3 years of being here now, I've just been like, it was really just something I needed to figure out for myself. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I realize I mispronounced the title in my opening.
Oh no. Well, it's a very much like a play on word.
It
It's like,
is, yeah.
yeah, it is A Lien. It is like Alien. Like it's a they're very smart, these brothers, but I remember when we first were like learning about the title, someone said to me and they were like, that's gonna be a complicated title. I was like, I don't think so. Like people are gonna struggle with how to pronounce it. I was like, if people are worried about how to pronounce the movie and that's what they're taking away, then we have failed as filmmakers. Like if that's what people are walking away from, then we have failed in our efforts to tell something serious to an audience.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. The eye sees what the eye sees, and then you
Yes.
think about the film, and then you go back, and the minute you said Alien, it just triggered, oh my God, wow.
Yeah.
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 So what artists inspire you, Victoria?
Oh God, I should have like written down a list. Well, there's a lot of people like, probably more obvious ones, but like people like Riley Keough and Emma Stone who are really beautiful creative artists who fluctuate in this great grounded comedy drama ability, but are producing their own stuff and producing work that they don't even star in is really the goal. I mean, I've always kind of not really joked, but said that like people like Danny DeVito are some of my like career heroes, who have stayed in it forever and like produced Pulp Fiction.
Mm.
Like they do theater and TV and films and have worked their entire careers like that's I'm in it for the long haul, the longevity of it. So I really admire those kind of artists and how they've like taken ownership over their careers. And also I just think they're extremely talented. Like I haven't seen Riley Keough or Emma Stone or Danny DeVito in anything where I didn't believe what they were saying. um I think just in terms of like tall girl superstar heroes, like Nicole Kidman, like since
Uh,
childhood has been like we're the same height. And I was like, if she can make it, I can make it. And I don't know, Harris Dickinson, I think, is an exceedingly talented actor. Like
I
in
loved Baby Girl. Baby Girl was
so.
extraordinary.
Yeah, he's just like so grounded. I don't know. He's so spontaneous with like how he works. I think Triangle of Sadness was one of the most
Mm.
mind-blowing films of my life. Like the Triangle of Sadness, and there's this film Yannick. Have you seen Yannick?
Yes, I have.
Love that French director. I
Mm.
am writing a feature right now that's currently 74 pages, and I kind of like to stop there because I really sometimes think like if I have nothing more to say, I'm not going to force you into 3 hours of my thoughts. But though that movie and Triangle of Sadness, I was like, never have I seen anyone take kind of an absurd scenario and let it unfold so naturally. Like to the point that I was like, it was like this is almost like documentary level acting. Like there's such a ease and I don't know, grounded sense to who these people are in these roles. And it that those are yeah, those are two films that like in the last like 10 years I've been like, I go watch that forever.
It's that authenticity, and that brings us right back to Alien.
Yeah.
I mean, the one of the things that is so exciting about the film is how authentic it is.
Yeah.
Um, strip away the politics, and all you have is you have a love story. Three people who are just trying to stay together.
Yeah. 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 It's I like gets me a little choked up. It's very um I think that's the heartbreaking part about it. I mean, above all things, but like for me, like when I watch it, like I remember we were doing takes where I had to run. I had to run each time to get to the officers. And I would run the whole hallway of this building. And I was in these like Zara flats, like running full speed. And I would do the scene and I'd go back and like reset and like start again. And there was a moment where in between Cora came over to play because she wanted to play. Because they were like resetting something. And I grabbed her hands and I started spinning her around the room. And then I got really upset that I was like losing her and like
Oh,
had to like, hold her for a little bit. And then we had to reset the scene and do it again. And it was just, yeah, it absolutely breaks my heart that there's people out there. I mean, it's our worst nightmare.
yeah,
It's our worst nightmare. You lose your parents, you lose your kids, someone comes in and takes you away from your family. That's like any child or family's worst nightmare. That's still my nightmare. Like I get worried about my family all the time that I'll lose them and I won't have them. So it's I hope that what has come of this film is a universal sensation of that fear and loss. Like you can come at this story from any background and sense of politics, but really, like we're talking about people and family.
yeah.
That's really what it is. That's the core of it. Yeah.
Tori, final question. What are you doing next? What can we see you in next? What are your plans?
Well, I produced a short film called Disc, that's directed by my friend Blake Rice, who's a really talented director, and that's in post-production. It will probably hit the festival circuit in like 2026, probably. And then there's a couple other pieces that I've been a part of. And then I'm just really hoping, like any actor that would be in this crazy surreal moment that, after years of kind of being a satellite out there on my own, that I don't know, I hope I come out of this with more work and bigger work. I'm always have my hands in a few pots, but it's usually me driving the car. It'd be nice to have like a passenger. Like have someone else who's like, you want to swap? You want me to take the wheel? I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, your performance in the film is masterful, so I hope and I have a feeling that is going to happen. I want to thank you for taking the time out to talk with us.
Thank you so much. This is
Thank
so wonderful.
thank you.